Hello everyone, wishing you a day filled with peace and love. Thank you for staying with us through today's story. If something in Dieu Han's journey touched your heart, please subscribe to Dieu Han Review so you won't miss the next episodes. Stories told through silence, persistence, and love without condition. And now, as this chapter closes, another begins. Behind the silence that never found words lies the quiet footsteps of a man named Then, who left behind work, routine, and everything familiar, just to search for a girl named Han, not because anyone asked, not because he owed anyone. He simply went, because something in his heart whispered, she's still out there, waiting to be seen. A man who took a month-long leave from work just to search for Dieu Han. No one asked him to do it. There was no agreement, no commitment, just an unspoken promise, and nameless affection strong enough to send him out to find a girl who seemed to have vanished into silence. That day was scorching hot, the asphalt radiating heat like a furnace. Then drove in the midday sun, silent, with only soft music from the radio easing his tense heartbeat. His mind held just one thing: he had to find Dieu Han. He didn't know where she was, or if she was even waiting, but he kept going, not for a promise, but for a feeling he could no longer ignore. When the car began to shake and sputter on the empty road, Then knew something was wrong. He quickly pulled over and opened the hood. The smell of hot engine mixed with the dry breeze as sweat soaked his back. There was no one in sight, no shelter, just him and the red car, stranded under the blazing sun. He turned the key, tried again. The engine whined dryly, then fell silent, then exhaled deeply, tilting his head toward the blinding sky. Everything seemed to test his patience: the weather, the car, the sheer silence. But inside him, the image of Dieu Han became clearer than ever. Without waiting another second, he released the brake and started pushing the car slowly along the deserted road. His hands were sweaty, the soles of his feet burning on the searing pavement. Every step reminded him Dieu Han deserved to be found, no matter how far or how hard it was. On the long, shadeless road, Then kept going. The car was heavy, the heat relentless, but he didn't complain. Every time exhaustion crept in, he thought of Han, a 16-year-old mother, raising a child alone, walking through a childhood of absence. He thought, if she could do it, then he had no right to stop. Inside the small wooden house, Dieu Han sat beside her sleeping son, fanning him with a piece of cardboard. The air was stifling, thick with heat that weighed on every breath. The warmth seeped through the wooden slats, and beads of sweat rolled down her forehead. Soaking into her worn shirt, Tom slept soundly, but his small body stirred constantly from the heat. Ewing sat across from her, quietly watching Han. She knew Han would never complain, but the weariness in her eyes and the patience in every motion of the fan said everything. Ewing handed her a cool glass of water and gently asked, "Must have been emotional seeing Mr. and Mrs. Chin again, right?" Dieu Han nodded softly, still fanning her son. Meeting them felt like recovering a piece of memory she thought was lost forever. The way they looked at her, called her Tian, shared old stories. It felt like returning to a time she never remembered. Dieu Han whispered, "I never thought I'd hear someone say my old name again." Ewing took Han's hand and held it tightly. She didn't need an explanation or the full story. She just needed to know Han was finding herself again, and she'd be there with her. Ewing smiled gently. "They truly love you, not out of pity, but because you deserve that kind of love." Dieu Han stayed silent for a long while. She looked at Tom, then out to the fields. A soft breeze drifted in, rustling the edge of the cardboard in her hand. Han whispered, "Maybe it was destiny." "Ewing, I still don't remember what my parents looked like, but at least I heard stories about them." Again, like a bridge between the past and now. Ewing nodded, her eyes glistening. What Han had lost might never fully return, but from that day on, Ewing knew Han no longer walked alone. She had Tom, she had Ewing, and now she had a memory slowly awakening in Han's hand. The cardboard still waved gently. Each sweep seemed to breathe life into the pieces of a life once left in silence. Than was drenched in sweat, his arms aching, and the car still hadn't reached any shade. He leaned against the car door, breathing heavily, sweat dripping onto his already soaked collar. Just then, A man in a light jacket and shorts stepped out from a house nearby. Eyeing them curiously, he walked over and asked, "Hey man, what's wrong with the car?" Then turned back, forcing a weak smile. "Engine overheated. I think it gave up under this heat." The man nodded, glancing around. "Breaking down here, that's rough. Do you know where the nearest garage is?" Then shook his head, then asked with a hopeful tone, "Is there any repair shop nearby?" The man pointed to the end of the road, where the distant trees swayed in the heat. "About 2 kilometers from here. There's an old guy too, who fixes engines pretty well, but it's new. He might be resting. You can walk or push it a bit further." Then nodded, quietly thanked him, then bent down to start pushing again. The young man watched for a moment, then pointed more clearly toward the end of the road. He added, "Just go straight, about 3 kilometers ahead. There's a small green sign at an intersection. The shop's right on the right-hand side. Whether it's the heat or exhaustion, that's the closest hope around." Then nodded, quietly thanked him again, but then stood upright, deciding to walk the rest of the way to find the repair shop, and maybe, just maybe, find a trace of Dieu Han. On Than's back was an old, frayed backpack carrying a few clothes, a water bottle, and a photo whose edges had blurred with time. One he'd clutched since the beginning. His shoes were caked with dust, each step heavier under the relentless sun. He crossed small village paths, passing cornfields, run-down rooftops, and the curious gazes of passers-by. But no one recognized the name Dieu Han. No one knew where that girl might have once belonged. Each person he asked, each shake of the head. Than wasn't discouraged at first, but every polite refusal left an invisible scratch on his heart. He thought of Dieu Han, of little Tom, of their nights in a temporary shack, no fun, no light, only the warm breaths of mother and child in the dark. He wondered, were they okay? Still nearby? Or had they moved on once again? Then slowed down beneath an old canopy. There wasn't much shade, but it was enough to breathe a little easier. He didn't sit, didn't rest, just stood there for a moment, staring into the distance. The heat still pressed down, the road still stretched endlessly, but he had no intention of stopping. Inside, a strange restlessness stirred, like if he paused, he might miss something vital. To others, this would seem reckless. But to him, it was the only way to face himself. As the sun softened, he stood up, brushed off his pants, and walked on. He asked a few more houses. Some studied the photo and shook their heads. One woman thought she'd seen someone like her at the market days ago, but wasn't sure. He didn't take notes or mark maps. He just remembered every path, every rooftop, every voice, as if trust was the only thing worth recording. Than's shadow stretched across the brittle ground. A gentle breeze picked up, brushing fine dust against his clothes. He didn't stop. Though tired, though heavy-hearted, his legs kept moving. Nothing ahead was certain, but for Than, even the smallest chance of seeing Dieu Han and little Tom made every step today absolutely necessary. That afternoon, Dieu Han carried little Tom and a small box of pastries as she walked toward Mr. and Mrs. Chin's house. The late sunlight cast a weary golden hue on the village path. She wanted to offer a small token of gratitude to the two people who had given her hope. But just a few steps from the wooden gate, Han stopped in her tracks. From inside the house, she heard Mrs. Chin's voice, not loud, but unmistakably clear. "I know you care for that girl, but I still worry because of our daughter." Mrs. Chin's voice trembled slightly. Holding something unspoken, Dieu Han stood outside and only caught that one line. She didn't know what it meant exactly. And she didn't try to guess. She had experienced such moments before, the hesitations, the guarded hearts of others. Her hand still firmly held the box of pastries, her expression calm as if she'd heard nothing at all. Gently, she pushed the gate open and stepped inside, her smile intact. Because she understood not everyone opens their heart right away. And sincere love takes time to be understood. Mrs. Chin stepped outside at the sound, her eyes meeting Dieu Han's as she opened the gate. There was a hint of hesitation in her gaze. But she gave a small nod before quietly turning back into the house. Dieu Han followed with Tom in her arms, her face calm as if she had heard nothing earlier. Mr. Chin, standing at the porch, lit up at the sight of them. He said gently, "We're so glad you came. Han, my wife and I have been thinking, if you're not opposed, we'd like to invite you and your son to stay here with us for a while. Consider it a way to make this house feel a little warmer." Mr. Chin sat down, his voice low and sincere. "Han, I'm speaking from the heart. I'd like you to move in and stay with us. This house still has a spare room. It could be a stable place for you and your child, even just for a while. I don't want you living with uncertainty every day, worrying about shelter and food." Dieu Han listened, her eyes wavering, but then she smiled gently. "I'm truly grateful to you and your wife, but I'm currently staying with Yuin, my longtime friend. She's cared for me and Tom through our hardest days. I can't just walk away without repaying that." She paused, then added, "Whenever I have time, I'll come visit you, sit and listen to your stories about my father. Just being able to return here already warms my heart." Mrs. Chin stood quietly by the kitchen door, saying nothing more, but her gaze toward Han had softened. Mr. Chin slowly nodded, his voice warm and full of affection. "Then I won't insist. This house will always be open to you. Treat it like a part of your own." After wandering for hours through nameless roads, then booked a ride with a motorbike app driver. The driver, an older man in a red uniform and helmet, simply nodded and motioned for Then to hop on, then didn't ask the price. Didn't care about the route, he just needed to keep going, anywhere that might lead him to Dieu Han. The motorbike sped through alleys, from town to countryside, past crooked fences and roadside markets. Wine slapped his face, the sun scorched his skin, but his mind held only one image: Dieu Han. The man didn't ask much, just kept driving then through unfamiliar roads. At times, they rattled over rough dirt paths, and then feared the bike might break, but he said nothing. Never mentioned the broken car again. That no longer mattered, since the moment he left it behind. His mind held only one thought: he had to find Dieu Han. Eventually, as the sun climbed and the air grew stifling, the man stopped near a small roadside store. He turned and said curtly, "This is as far as I go. I've got things to do." Then nodded, reached into his backpack to grab his wallet, but when he dug through the final compartment, his face turned pale. The wallet was gone. His heart dropped. He glanced around frantically, but it was no use. The man frowned. "What's this? No money?" Then tried to explain, "I must have lost my wallet. Maybe someone stole it while I was pushing the car. I didn't mean to." But the man's tone sharpened. "Meaning or not, I used my time and gas. Who's going to pay me?" Than's face flushed, not with anger, but shame. He lowered his head. "I'm truly sorry. I didn't expect to lose my wallet like this." Than fumbled, opened his phone, and pulled up an old photo of Dieu Han. He held the screen up to the driver. "I'm not trying to skip out on the fare. I'm just looking for someone. This is her." The driver stared hard at the image. His expression loosened, but his eyes narrowed with suspicion. He asked, "Who are you to her? Are you one of the guys who chased her a few months back?" Then shook his head quickly, voice firm. "No, sir. I'm a friend. Someone who once helped Han. I mean no harm. I just want to know if she's okay." The driver stayed silent for several long seconds, the wind whipping softly around them. Then he turned off the engine. His voice was calmer, but cautious. "All right. I've seen this girl before. I don't know if she's still there, but I can take you to where I last saw her." Than was directed to the old boarding houses. He walked through narrow alleys, knocked on every door. Each question began with a photo on his phone and a simple sentence: "Have you seen this girl?" Some shook their heads, some had never seen her, others said she had moved away. Than didn't stop. Each refusal was like dust settling on his hope, but the light in his eyes never faded. The sky began to darken. Wind wrestled through old tin roofs, echoing a ghostly whisper. Sweat and dirt clung to his shirt, but then pressed on. He passed tea stalls, broken fences, rotting porches. Some people showed sympathy. Others gave him wary stares, but no one knew exactly where Dieu Han was. Thunder rumbled in the distance as Then looked up to a sky turned to dull gray. The first heavy rain of the season fell fast and hard, as if trying to wash away the turmoil in his chest. In the downpour, then kept walking, his shirt soaked through, hair matted to his forehead, hand clutching his phone tight. No one saw him cry, but the redness in his eyes, the heavy breaths, and the slow, weighted steps in the rain said it all. He didn't need to collapse or scream, just standing there, silent in the downpour, was enough to show that some pain makes no sound but runs deep, and runs long. The rain was no longer just water from the sky, for then, it poured down like the weight of everything he'd been carrying, questions left unanswered, regrets without clarity, fragile hopes he clung to all this way. Every drop felt like a moment of doubt, each one whispering, was it too late to find someone who once believed in me? Then no longer knew where he was heading. He just walked, as if his legs had learned the rhythm of searching. The rain soaked his shirt, weighed down his backpack, but couldn't weigh heavier than the heart already worn out. He remembered the last looks Dieu Han gave him, distant, yet full of something, and said, that look alone was enough to keep him walking. Some days in life, all a person wants is to hear their name called. Then didn't need Dieu Han to embrace him or forgive him. He just wanted to see her, to know with his own eyes that she was still here, still strong. Just enough to know life hadn't buried everything. Just enough to stop thinking at night, for the girl who once believed in him, if only for a moment. But the redness in his eyes and the weight in his steps said more than words ever could. It was now fully dark. The rare streetlights cast pale yellow glows onto the wet pavement, then turned back toward the road he came from, heading to where he had left his car. He didn't know if it was rain or tears soaking his collar, but he didn't wipe it away. Every step felt twice as heavy, not from exhaustion, but from thoughts piling up in his mind. He wondered, tomorrow, would he still have the strength to keep going? The car still sat silently by the curb, water streaks glowing faintly around its tires, then stood in front of it for a long moment, as if weighing something. He opened the door, slid into the driver's seat, but didn't start the engine. Inside was dampness, the scent of worn fabric, and a silence that echoed too loudly. Outside was the vast world, full of dead ends. And within him, one lingering question: should this journey end, or keep going? Thank you for watching this video to the end. Whether Thin stops or continues, we'll find out in the upcoming episodes. If this story made you pause, even for a moment, please share, comment, or subscribe, because sometimes a single view isn't just a view, it's quiet support for a journey longing to be seen.